The team are up at dawn, and by 8 the car is back in action. Ahead of it, an almost 700-kilometre run to the next checkpoint at Tennant Creek. It will prove to be a long, hot day. A day that has already begun badly for the biofuel Land Cruiser. Chief Technician Tony DeVos is faced with yet another niggling problem. A burst seal in the fuel injection.
Andrea, please turn the main switch on. Turn the main switch on. Now what I'm expecting to see is little bits of spitty, horrible fuel and stuff like that. Yeah, the big... No, that's the one.
So is this a major issue or a trivial thing?
It's trivial. As you can see, if we were having little spitty issues for a second,
yeah.
We've now got nice solid fuel flow again. Absolutely fantastic.
It's going to work now.
Gentlemen, off.
So it's
problem solved.
But the Outback is proving a dangerous foe for others in the fleet. One of the vicious little whirlwinds that scour the desert sends a support vehicle careering off the road. Fortunately, no one is badly injured.
Is the car jacked up? Yeah, it's jacked up.
Waikato are doing well, stopping only to change batteries at a roadhouse and entertain the locals. But the Solar Fern is facing trouble. The water pump is blown on their venerable Falcon support car, but Rob is still optimistic.
It's the solar panels that's the biggest problem. The car is proving to be very reliable, much more reliable than the support vehicles.
Which naturally is the cue for the first solar car breakdown. Which means some urgent roadside repairs to try to get back on the road before the officials call their day closed at 5 p.m.
I think we're going to mark it here, and we'll get a charge here, and then later on, after the sun goes down, we'll move everything into the campsite.
Okay, I'll make those.
Tonight is off to an Outback campground, a couple of K down the road, and the hope of a better day tomorrow. The Solar Fern team are now a day behind the leaders and have their work cut out just to make the halfway mark at Alice Springs before the checkpoint closes and they're disqualified. Trying to claw their way back into the race is not going to be easy. From lying in 14th position, they're now almost last. As the day hots up, the convoys of racers clog the Stewart Highway ahead. And no one seems to consider the irony in the amount of fuel that's being burned to keep the tiny eco-friendly solar cars in the race. Especially when you consider the race has been run for 20 years now, with no sign of solar cars making it into everyday use. But at least the Solar Fern makes it through the Alice checkpoint on time, and is still just in the race. Meanwhile, the biofuel Land Cruiser is chewing through the black sludge that powers it. Scrutineers ensure the evil-looking mixture is the principal fuel that's being used to run the vehicle.
So there's no hidden fuel tanks?
The fuel tank is actually sitting on the seat for everyone to see. There is nowhere that you can hide fuel in this vehicle.
So you're not putting one across us?
I'm not putting one across you.
The GreenFleet doesn't have the pressure of the solar race. In fact, as they leave Alice, the alternative cars are diverted to Uluru, Ayers Rock, for an evening of sightseeing. The next day, with the Rock and Alice Springs well behind, all the teams are making good time for the finish line at Adelaide. All the teams, that is, except us. The diesel engine on our Mercedes campervan suddenly dies in the middle of a South Australian desert. And one of the first to find us? The biofuel team. Steve Ryan and Tony DeVos do their best to resuscitate the lifeless Mercedes.
Well, we've been stuck here for about 2 hours now. It's about 38 degrees and it's not looking good.
The engineers eventually conclude the fuel pump has had a meltdown. They tow the truck to the nearest outback garage, where its race is over. We hitch a lift with biofuel to Pt2, the opal mining centre that is the next overnight stop. Naturally, none of this is the least bit embarrassing to us. The next morning, the BIOS team are all set for the final run into Port Augusta and then Adelaide. The solar race is long forgotten between the two GreenFleet teams. All they're thinking about is getting to the other side of the continent. It's literally the last leg, and both Biofuel and Waikato want to be the first New Zealand car home. They both know the solar fern is at least a day behind them, but they also know either one of them could take New Zealand line honours. And so which penny turns up first? The indestructible old Land Cruiser. So what is the big secret that kept it going?
When are you going to tell us what the catalyst is?
Well, I'll put it this way, for one of our fuel blends, we're getting it validated by a state agency in the US, and that will probably be up towards midwinter, January, February. Once it's validated by the state agency and we have it validated by the EPA, most of the world will actually know a process, and that's quite a positive thing.
The Waikato car is next, a couple of hours behind and a little the worse for wear, but still functioning.
Did it perform up to expectations?
Yeah, definitely. The car has really good range. We're really happy with it, and considering we drove the last 2 days on one motor, it still performed really well. We were able to travel at 85 to 90 kilometres per hour.
But as for the solar fern, as the last official day of the race Saturday ended, the Canterbury team was still officially out there somewhere.
For the record, the solar fern made it to Adelaide on the Sunday. Caught in a storm on the last leg, they were forced to put their car on the trailer, but they say they will be back for the next race in 2009.